Oh, how are you?
Good. So did you guys meet?
Yes.
We did.
Very nice meeting.
Oh, good.
We had challenges, clarification.
That comes back positive.
That's what happens when I miss the one.
That's awesome.
Good.
Hey, did better
Sorry,
than
you
the
don't
one prior.
anything within 24 hours.
I just,
You're good to go.
I texted him when I couldn't make it. And he said-
That's me.
he said, "I
That's
feel
me?
like
That's
we're
you.
rushing into
Okay.
this and we're moving it from everything." I'm like, I'm not- Any passport?
I've been tracked in New York. It's been,
Yeah.
supposed to arrive
Good to see everybody.
last
Early
night.
Saturday.
Yeah, there you go.
She arrived last night.
My granddaughter
Did
does
it.
them.
Supposed to arrive today at 5, and it had years.
Tracked in New York.
We're supposed to be smizing.
And it's just somehow.
She's probably doing the same.
Supposed to be.
Oh, that's okay.
Some things I really like.
I supposed to be. Sure.
I heard that it.
I really like that. I think.
I used to
I
slide
give it to you guys
good.
if I know. Say it for a mouth and I say like this.
Basketball. Next week in summer. We're based out in Harrisburg.
One came from Kevin Potter.
Boys and girls volleyball, same season, soccer,
Oh,
it's the same season.
Ah,
Cheering athletes and I about down south.
Hey, Kevin.
Don't wait to small school.
Good, how are you?
we're gonna have to wait another year.
Football and basketball, it's all-
Oh, yeah, I know.
We're gonna do water ballet.
Yeah. One more year, that's okay. We can.
Variety show.
But won't it be great when it happens?
It will,
People
no,
are
not
just
so
gonna
much.
be so
Everybody's
excited.
gonna be so appreciative to get out the house.
The anticipation.
We just, the problem is we don't have enough time.
Right.
I would say.
As long as we have our suits, then we're okay.
Yeah, nice job on the tour yesterday, by the way.
Oh, yeah, you were with us virtually.
Yeah, what was the 3B machine called?
It's just called a Firelight UVC. It's R0. It's a Firelight.
But I gotta mention you somewhere.
I know.
I'll go into detail ad nauseam.
I know. You're so fun. You remind me of Tom Skilling and the weather. It's like, once you get going, you're just like, so excited.
I got a lot to tell you.
I was looking forward to it. Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Weatherman.
But I mean, like things that you really know, you get so excited when you talk about it. So it's just really fun.
Well,
I was going. Yeah,
So that's our.
the backup one. But I have to meet, I have to manage somewhat the temperature is.
We're all here
It's
today.
not sitting in the snow there, so.
Yeah. Good to see you too. Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of would like to get started on, oh, here she is.
Okay.
Let me jump right in.
Ready?
They got so quiet. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:32. You can do the roll call.
Davalos,
Here.
Mellon,
Here.
Winnet,
Here.
Australi.
Here.
Wellington,
Here.
Yaffe here, Vogt.
Here. Okay, citizen comments. Do we have anyone present this evening who wishes to address the board? Okay, so the Board of Education welcomes citizen input. Citizens are reminded to limit their comments to 3 minutes. And also that matters regarding employees or in confidential student matters will not be allowed, nor will the board respond. Okay? Technical difficulty, we're trying to get you. Hang on. Are they still there?
He's there, but he's muted.
Okay. Can you chat with them and tell them to unmute himself?
There he is. Dave, you're on?
Dave Whitson, me?
Yep.
Good evening, Mundelein High School Community District 120 Board of Education, Mundelein High School Administration, and Mundelein High School Community. I want to make this clear. I'm speaking on behalf of myself as both a community member and a faculty member within the Wellness Department at Mundelein High School. I'm speaking on behalf of several of my colleagues and myself. What I'm about to say is not a reflection of the entire staff, but is a reflection of the staff members I work closely with on a day-to-day basis these past 7 months. I want to make it very clear that Mundelein High School is a very amazing place. The students and staff are very special to me, and I believe that Mundelein High School has some of the best educators in the world. And I'm going to share with you why. My name is David Whitson. I'm best known in the hallways and the athletic field and in the community as Whitty. I came to Mundelein High School in 2004 because I married in 1987. In 1987, I married a 1979 graduate, Karen Sinkovic. We have 2 kids, both Brian and Allie, and both are graduates of Mundelein High School. My family and I have had the darndest time, as most people, in dealing with this COVID pandemic. But that's not my immediate family, as you may know. I take pride in developing relationships with all my students. As Mr. Whitson, it's simply as Whitty. I ask my students every day when they come into my classroom to call me Whitty, because they're going to be loved unconditionally, and I'll do my best to assist them in earning whatever credit they're earning, whether it be in health, driver's ed, or on the athletic field. They are part of my family, and they're a good part of who I am. It is with great pride that I take that having these kids that walk into my classroom on a day-to-day basis. I let them know we no longer have student-teacher relationship, but you'll always be part of my family. I know these are unprecedented times. As both a community member and a staff member, I can't wait for the opportunity to see both my immediate family. Since the start of the pandemic, I've been seeing my daughter since last March. She's a traveling nurse who's been in Salt Lake City, Los Angeles, and now called upon to be with the other frontline workers in Denver. Her brother was supposed to be married this past June in Guatemala, but because of the pandemic, we had to settle for a Cook County courthouse without a sister. This is just my own personal dealing within my family the last 9 months. Since June of 2020, when Governor Pritzker lifted the restrictions, MHS were able to follow the ISBE guidelines, the Illinois State Board of Education, for those who don't know what ISBE is. At the start of the Phase 3 program, driver's education behind the wheel started at Mundelein High School. These brave souls, Brett Wilhelm, Reed Christensen, Justin Hart, Mike Vukovic, Vince Vince DeFrancisco, Steve Brin, myself, and other out-of-district employees, including Ray Wynn and Eric Jensen, have taught 168 students 6 hours behind the wheel instruction, which equates to 1,008 hours of BTW. During this time, we've been in the car instructing 2 students for approximately 2 hours each lesson. In June and July, we started driving as early as 6 a.m. and as late as 5 p.m. continuously on the hour until we met the requirements by law of the 6 hours instructions of driving. Since August 24th, for 4 days a week, up until December 11th, we drove from 7:45 a.m. to 9:45 and then started our regular school day. During the last 7 months, we have not incurred one incident where a student or staff member have contracted the COVID-19 virus. We have diligently followed the guidelines set by the state of the social distancing and sanitizing the car after each student. Kevin Quinn and the buildings and grounds people have maintained a sanitary and clean building to make it secure for us to come in every day. Kathy Schmidt and her staff in the security department have provided social distancing procedures while we are in the building. When will it ever be safe to return to school? I hear that question daily, not only from members of my students, but the community, the media, and then I hear from some of my colleagues who love and respect very much it may not be safe. Well, I'm here to tell you that I'm living proof that I think it's a better time than now to get back into school. I myself was diagnosed with throat cancer last January, has had 1/3 of my vocal cord removed. My wife is living with 1 kidney, and I have a child with onslaught of MS. I too am very concerned, but we take the precautionary measures, and that's the reason why we haven't been able to see our daughter. But I don't think there's a reason for us to not come back to MHS in a hybrid model. I ask that you tonight please consider coming back sooner than later. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. And again, I'm speaking on behalf of myself and several colleagues in the wellness department and a faculty member, a community member, and my wife's been in this community since 1962. And God bless you guys for the decisions you have to make. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Whitson.
Thanks, Whitty.
2 more, okay.
Ryan, you're on.
Ryan, I'm not sure if you can hear us. You're on. If you're muted, you may want to unmute your microphone.
Okay, there goes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. So my name is Ryan Raimondo. I actually graduated from Mundelein High School in 2003. I recently joined Premier Realty Group. So they specialize in new construction and land development. I recently spoke to folks at the Mundelein Planning and Zoning. And I've looked at a couple of lots. So I guess this is more of a comment, more of a question as I'm learning here, because I'm excited that I have a client looking to develop in the Mundelein area. There are a couple parcels that are owned by Mundelein High School. Is there a process I can follow as far as inquiring about the sale of those pieces of land?
I would guess that you would either contact the business office.
Okay.
You would be the person that would be able to help you with. We will not be able to help you with that tonight, but good luck with it.
Okay, thank you. I thought I'd just at the very least find out and inquire about the process. So I'll make sure to do that.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One more? We don't hear you yet, so if your microphone is muted, you will need to unmute it, please.
Artie, you're on.
I'm sorry, we're not hearing you. You'll need to unmute or we'll need to keep going with our meeting. I apologize. Who's out there? We're not able to get you on, so,
She left.
okay. All right. The next thing we have on our agenda is the consent agenda. I'll need one motion for roll call on all these items listed below. Does anyone have any questions before this starts? Okay, may we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Wellington,
Yes.
Millen,
Yes.
Wimet,
Yes.
Rostrelli,
Yes.
Yaffe, yes, Bolt.
Yeah.
Davalos.
Yes.
Okay, the next thing we have is, did anybody have any questions from Monday? I know we have a very busy meeting tonight with lots of topics.
From the tour?
No, just from the packet.
I just had one quick question. The total number of accommodations, I think it said 26. Is that the entire staff or just the faculty?
I can address that when I speak to it
Perfect,
during the
perfect.
presentation.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Tom, Peter, you're good right now? Okay. All right, so then we're gonna be moving right on to our District 120 reports. The first one will be the business office.
All right. Find a way to make that any bigger or? Okay. The Village of Mundelein is proposing a TIF district. And what a TIF district is, for those of you who don't know, is a tax increment financing district. And what the village does is when they have a piece of property that they think is, well, the official term is blighted. And it's really a piece of an area that they think they've tried for years and years to get it developed, and it just isn't getting there. And so what they do at the village, they've got two other TIF districts. We're in one right now as we speak. And it goes east and then down, kind of follows the train tracks down to where they're doing that new development in town, where they took down the old music factory and cleared that whole property. That's two TIF districts there. This is a new one that they're proposing, and then this is on the south end of town. And what a TIF district does for them is it freezes all the property taxes where they are right now. So if they do put this TIF district through, and they are proposing it this winter, they have it on their April agenda to approve it. There's some hearing process that will go on in the meantime, but we don't really have any real say in that. We can't vote as a taxing body and say we don't agree with this and you can't do it. It's really totally up to the village to decide whether they do this or not. But what it does is it'll freeze our property taxes for our area of this TIF district for 23 years. So it won't go down, but it's not going to go up either. And any increase in the value of the property, they'll still tax it just like they normally would. They'll get that increment of tax financing, and they can use those extra dollars to help develop that area. And that's the whole concept of TIF districts. This is the map of it, and it was in your board packet. We just have the high school districts and the boundaries of it. So really, most of it's in Stevenson High School District. And Tom and I were talking about this earlier. It's kind of weird. You don't realize that Stevenson comes so far up, but it does. And then the green is the Mundelein High School District. And if you know this area, it's kind of hard to tell right now. This is the old Menards down here and that whole development here. So you got that trampoline place here, got Culver's up here. There's that bank and the Pita Inn over here. There's a big open space area here with a creek. But really the big one is that old Menards anchor store and all those stores that are in there. They're all vacant except for the trampoline place. It also, the black lines are the TIF district that they're proposing. So you go across 45 and 83, and it takes in what's called that Patriot Plaza there. You have Ellie's in there. you got, what is that? I think Salvation Army is in there and a bunch of little stores and some auto places that are all down in here. It doesn't include the hotel here. That's a good chunk of property, I guess. And then the part for us in the green up here, this is the Market Fresh Market, and then there's a whole bunch of stores that are just west of that. So that's in our district, and there's a whole bunch of vacant land back here by the train tracks. So that's the part of it that's in Mundelein High School District. It's really for us, as far as our total EAV, it's I wouldn't want to say it's a drop in the bucket, but it is pretty small for us. The bulk of it is going to be Stevenson High School District. They're wanting to go ahead with this. They think that they have better plans for this part that they want to do, and I guess some developers have given them plans for that area. It would change into housing rather than commercial or industrial. And they have a nice park over here. They'd really fix this park up, and there's that memory care center down here. So all of this would really be housing in here is what they're thinking will happen. What they'd like to do with the area that's in Mundelein High School District is to make it industrial, which would be a benefit for us in the long run, but none of us are going to see the benefit of that. I mean, with a 23-year TIF district, I just hope to be around at the end of that one physically. They've talked about the possibility of selling that Market Fresh and just like tearing down that whole thing and putting up a big industrial type of complex back there. Mundelein, the village feels that's the highest and best use of that property, and that's what they want to do. They don't have anybody to do that at this point. But with a TIF district, like I mentioned before, they can either improve the property, be able to offer incentives to a developer, that sort of thing. That's why they do the TIF district. So that's it in a nutshell. Do you guys have any questions about it? I will be attending the hearings. They do offer that. They haven't set up a date yet for that, but they anticipate those will be taking place in February. So I will attend, ask questions, those sorts of things. But again, we can come and be at those hearings, but we have no say in what they eventually decide.
So can you explain that? Because I know in the past I have voted on TIF districts before. What distinguishes when you have a right to vote and when you don't?
That only happened when they wanted to combine two TIF districts together, when they created this one that we're in now. And again, when they did that, they wanted to dissolve one into two. That didn't happen, in part because of District 76 was against it. But what they did is they just did an end around and said, oh, well, then we'll just create a second district instead of put the two together, and ding, we're done. Again, we can say what we want to at any kind of public hearing, but they can, essentially, it's really up to the village's discretion and their board to do that. So if you had issues with it, it'd be best for you to talk to, a board member in the village to talk to them about it.
And is this actually Mundelein? What village is this doing?
It is Mundelein, yeah, it's all Mundelein, because they're the ones that have the jurisdiction over it.
I'm surprised that that's not unincorporated Fremont.
No, the elementary district, that's all District 76, all of it, I think, is pretty much all of that area is all this Diamond Lake School District for the elementary.
Yes.
You can see it's split between, us and Stevenson.
So but they've, at this point right now, where Garden Fresh is, they have no plans to, if no one.
Their ultimate plan is they'd like to see it be more of an industrial area rather than commercial, but they don't want to put any houses or anything back there. They think their best use of that property up there. And again, this is all vacant back here. I think, if they had their druthers, they just like to get rid of all of that and just make it one big, probably like that warehouse that's down on Allenson that they just built or are in the process of building, something along that, like a distribution type of center, industrial type of thing. I think that's what they'd like to see back there.
Okay, in your experience, and I don't know how much experience you've had with this, from the research that I've seen, TIFs aren't necessarily a guarantee that that's gonna.
No. And that's what happened here is, you guys have all lived here for a while. When you look at downtown, their original first TIF district was that area where, they put in the new, their new village hall. They did raise all those buildings downtown. They did put a couple of apartments and condos up there. But when the thing that killed them is the recession hit like 2 years after they started that TIF district, and that the real estate market just went in the tank. And it really hasn't recovered even since then. So that's why they wanted to pull those two TIF districts and put them together as one. That didn't work out so well because part the opposition from District 76, but then they just started a second TIF district, which we're in right now, which is more along this corridor on Route 45 here, Lake Street.
Do you think that we'll hear on a monthly basis where things are? Is this a weekly basis? How quickly do things move?
It'll move. They want to vote on it at their April meeting.
They do. Okay.
So they were supposed to, I haven't checked to see, I think they had a board meeting last night to approve moving forward with this. I haven't checked to see whether that got approved or not. I'm assuming it did. Then it's the hearing process, which they're anticipating will be in February, maybe into March, and then they'll vote on it for sure. They have to, by law, go through that hearing process. But they're, at this point, what they've told us and what they've published literature-wise is they want to have this voted on in April at their board meeting.
You'll keep us as informed as we can get.
Yep, I'll do that. I plan on hitting one of those hearings, and then I'll have more information on that point to see where we're at with it, or where they're at with it, I should say.
Last question, just, would they relocate those businesses or what?
They could. I mean, it really just depends. The businesses want to just be done and get out, that's fine. I'm sure Mundelein would like to relocate some of them. They're the more viable ones, and they might help them do that. But and that could be some of what the use of some of those TIF dollars could be for them to do. But that's totally up between the whatever business and the village.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
I'll give you little updates as we go along this winter and spring. Okay. That's it for me.
Thank you. Okay, our next report is the superintendent's office.
Good evening, everybody. I'm up on the screen. So when we met last week, you had a few items that you had asked for us to come back as an administrative team and to provide for you in regards to a hybrid plan. And what you were looking for was to get some follow-up in regards to survey data that we had in place, some of the stats that we had in programs that had been taking place since the start of the school year. Looking at some of our student staff data, in addition to the mitigations that have been put in place to be able to address how we proceed with COVID and start living with it. And in addition to that, the focus was to bring back a two-group hybrid, and your request was to have it begin by the end of the year. So since that last meeting until now, that is what the admin team has worked on. We've had a couple opportunities to talk with staff just about what the plans are with going forward. And tonight we're going to be able to present that to you with the request that you had. I think it's important that we also keep remembering that this process really has started back in August, when we've had leaders from MES, MESA, MIA, admin, the Board of Ed, meeting regularly to help chart our course with care and concern for our students and our staff in mind. It's been during that time that we have learned how to live and move on with our lives through this pandemic. And things have certainly changed month to month, if not seemingly day to day. The plan that's being presented to you tonight is a good plan, and one that does establish a good yet prudent starting point for in-person instruction. The other part that the board is bringing about was looking at what's taking place around us. This plan does follow what similar implementation timeframes are for some of our peer districts that are in our area. As we do look to move forward with this plan that you'll hear tonight, We will stay on top of the available data from local and state agencies, and we will also start incorporating our own personal data within our own walls. We have worked with Lake County Health Department and will continue to do so because we want to stay clear with them on the guidelines that we have with the Department of Public Health, how to address when student or staff are exposed with potential symptoms, be consistent with that process that's in place, or what to do even if they test positive, because that does change, and making sure that we stay abreast of that and working with our staff. Since that time, it's hard to believe, but since August, we've also had a number of increased mitigation measures that we've put in place to help limit the potential exposure for our staff and our students. The one part I do want to stress to you, board and community and staff and everybody listening tonight, the key to the success of this plan lies within each and every one of us. We have to be vigilant with following the mitigation measures and know that we do need to be very flexible with following the process, because there's going to be times we may need to take an adaptive pause. And we know we'll have to switch back into some remote setting at some point, potentially. We've got to be knowledgeable that it's happening and yet stay focused with the mitigations that we've had in place. So tonight, the recommendation that we do have for you in order for us to be successful is to please join us and be part of this within the process. Because now is the time we are going to be looking to move forward and bringing our students and our staff back to the building. So tonight, to start off with the presentations, I'd like to ask Stacy Gorman to begin with some of the data that she has collected.
Good evening, everyone. Do you mind if I don't stand at the podium?
No.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to start a little bit with some of the survey data. I do want to give you some general stats on a couple of different surveys we've administered. So in the fall, in October, we did a check-in with our families and our staff and our students to gather some input. At that time, we had around 1,400 students take the survey, which is a little over 70% of our student body. The teachers did administer the survey in class. So that is part of that return rate. For our parents, we had around 53%, between 53 and 55% of our families took the survey. And then for our staff, we had around 84% take the survey. So that gave us a lot of valuable data to make changes. I keep saying over and over again, we're building the plane while we're flying it, right? And so we got some data on cameras, on workload, on pace, on Zoom, on Canvas, and we made some changes accordingly. So we administered another survey in December, and the questions are a little bit different because we wanted students to reflect and our parents to reflect kind of on the entire semester and to get some feedback just on how their remote learning experience went. The return rate on this survey was much different. So we did not administer the survey in class to our students because it was the last week of the semester, and you can imagine what that looks like, Aaron, you know. So we had around 20% of our students take the survey. For our parents, we had around 30% of our families take the survey. And for teachers, we had around 60% of our teachers take the survey. And we did a teacher survey specifically because we wanted information about the teaching and learning within the remote classroom. So I'm not entirely sure what to make of it. Honestly, I think part of it is December, and December was very busy. And so it was a difficult time to get those return rates. Sometimes no news is good news. So sometimes I was thinking, well, maybe people are pleased. But we did gather some really good data in December as well. I'm going to present that to you tonight. I will try to be concise, but there are some points here that I'm really proud of that represent the hard work of our staff. And so this is our parent survey. We have an English language survey and a Spanish language survey. They very much mirror each other, so I'll show both data sets. So overall, how was your students' remote learning experience? So you can see the overwhelming majority was better than expected. So, I mean, most of the time, very few families want to see their students in a remote situation. As a parent, I've kind of seen that with my own children. And so to have this data was very positive. And we saw that positive data also reflected in the October survey, even though it was earlier in the semester. Slide, please. And so as you can see, this is the Spanish language survey. We had fewer responses, but the data was very similar. We do have a few more families that said that their experience wasn't as good as expected, but for the most part, the data is positive here. Next slide. So this is something that I have been closely monitoring all semester because I was very worried about workload. So if you remember the spring when students were doing really all asynchronous, workload was tricky because they were managing it pretty much independently. There are teachers doing a lot of monitoring and check-ins and those kinds of things, but it was a much different situation. So the workload, the yellow at 69% is just the right amount. Very happy with that. Part of the data and talking with our staff and our students, the 75-minute remote periods have really helped. So what we're seeing is the teacher will do some synchronous at the beginning or the end, and they will give students time to complete those assignments in the middle, or like I said, the second half of the class. So that's been very helpful. So families may not see as much homework coming home. And so this was positive. The one thing that you may have heard from students though, the caveat to this or the exception is AP classes. College Board has not changed their curriculum. They're not adjusting the AP exams right now. So students are still responsible for the same amount of content that they were pre-COVID. So we are discovering that our AP teachers are struggling a little bit to kind of keep up with the College Board curriculum. So that is a little bit of an exception to this. Those were in some of the student comments in the survey. Next slide, please. Here's our Spanish language survey. You can see the data very much mirrors the English language. Next slide, please. Okay, so when we get into the some of the student data, we're asking students how manageable was remote learning. Now, there are a lot of comments in the survey data in October and in December. Sorry, I don't want to block your view. So there were a lot of comments where students in the beginning were struggling a little bit. We are pleased with this data to see that most of the students who responded here said it was better than expected. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we have been very focused on is the social emotional aspects of educating the student. And so we've tried to put in different supports and contacts with the students to ensure that they're managing the isolation, the stress, and the anxiety. So this was part of our survey data in terms of the well-being and what additional information they might need throughout this time. 45% of the students who took the survey said that they feel informed of these resources. 42% said getting motivated. So we saw this with the survey data with the 1,400 kids. We saw very similar responses. Getting motivated in remote learning is difficult for many of our students. And then 31% said managing stress and anxiety. One of the things that we did in the fall, and we're doing again next semester, is we did a pulse survey. So we sent this out to students to check to see how everyone was doing. Students could write their name down and ask for someone to contact them. This was a wonderful idea because students did say, please have someone reach out to me. And our counselors and our social workers and our school sites did reach out to those students, got them connected with the resources that they needed to be able to manage the isolation and anxiety. We are also in the next couple of weeks going to administer that pulse survey again, particularly after we go into the hybrid model. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is our staff survey. We're asking about,
Can we go back to the last slide?
Sure.
The allowing them to request help is great, but is there anything else you've done to provide just general information about stress and anxiety and making that sort of information helpful or available?
Yes, and so this is more in the student services realm, so I can speak to some of the general things that I know. So we put out some information in the spring, and like I said, we've done these check-in surveys. Our counselors and social workers have also talked with our students to connect them with resources. They've been working with some of our families as well. But Mike might be able to speak more to that because he does work more closely with our counselors and social workers. No, if you want to speak, can you speak now?
I can just say one
Yeah,
more.
perfect.
Let's see if I hear. One thing I can add is the calming corner that we
Oh,
added
yeah.
on Canvas. So there's a page, our staff has worked to create this page that has every resource imaginable. So in Canvas.
Can they not?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, some of our teachers and staff created this calming corner in Canvas that obviously we're reaching out to students as well. This was their opportunity to reach back out to us and connect. But there is it's everything you can imagine. Homework help. There is, it's all on the same learning platform as all their classes. So there's not another place you have to go. It's still new, so I'm trying to think of things off the top of my head. But there's resources to reach out for, suicide hotline. There's ways to calm yourself at home, games to play, things to do with your family, all those scenarios. So all those are out there for every student in Canvas as well. So we reach out to students, we're asking them to reach out to us, for us to reach back out, and we're creating a resource page for them to just be directly in Canvas, if that helps.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
And I think that the other thing is important is, our teachers are boots on the ground. So they've also been coming forward with, any concerns that they have about students who are struggling socially, emotionally. Okay, so I think I might have talked about this, how manageable is remote learning. You can see the majority of students feel it is better than expected. And remote learning, there's going to be a lot of benefit to it, and there's going to be some challenges. And so, like I said, in the survey data we got in October, students were kind of all over the place in their comments. It does work for some, it doesn't work for others. And so you can see here in this survey data, overall, it seems to be positive. Next slide, please. Okay. Did we, Anna, this is the parent one. Did we go the wrong way? Sorry. Okay. Oh yes, this is where you are. So in terms of the staff, from your perspective, to what extent did students have a meaningful educational experience? This is a really important question. And we're still trying to break down some of the data and get some information from staff, not just in the survey, but also in department meetings and focus groups, those kinds of things. There's no blue. So I was very happy about that. So what we see is the majority of the teachers who took the survey, and again, this was a teacher survey, feel that students had a meaningful educational experience. Some of the things I think attribute to that is, one, teachers have finally gotten their groove a little bit, right? Because we know spring was a little nuts and we were all learning. I think the synchronous instruction has helped. Honestly, I think the breakout rooms are really cool. And some of the data from students is the direct instruction, just like explain the math problem to me, right? Tell me about the primary source that we're supposed to be reading. I do think students are kind of craving that direct teacher to teacher interaction. On the flip side though, is some of the other comments where we need to build classroom community. And those breakout rooms is a lot of times where that's at. On the next slide, please. Okay, so I think I talked about this. I think we keep going back and forth. They're very confident. All right, what worked well and what can we do? This is from a variety of data points. The breakout rooms works for private conversations with students or to have some one-on-one. One of the things that we did at the end of the semester, I would say the last 3 weeks of the semester, is it was all hands on deck. So we had administration going in and working with students in those private breakout rooms. Anthony was teaching chemistry. I was in social studies every day. It was really an amazing push to support our kids, and the breakout rooms allowed for that to happen, and also allows for teachers to work individually with students. Tech tools and Canvas, there's amazing things out there that's leading to increased engagement. We talked a little bit about the schedule and just flexible teachers. So kudos to our teachers they're allowing for reassessment, second chances, one-on-one assistance. What can we do better? Academic supports, and we'll talk a little bit about that later tonight. Student engagement, COVID fatigue, right? I mean, overall, I think the second semester is going to be challenging because students are struggling, right, to stay motivated and engaged. Still struggling a bit with the technology, not so much at the school, but student home internet. Cameras, all the staff celebrating cameras, great. A lot of the students and the parents love the cameras too, but it's still trying to get students to not have the camera towards the ceiling or tape on the camera or. So that's something that builds classroom community we're struggling with. Okay, I think that's all I have.
I'd like to comment on this one. I remember at the beginning of the semester, one of the things that we heard a lot about was inconsistencies between teachers in terms of how the assignments were being collected and assigned, and the confusion and the learning curve for students and staff in terms of getting the information housed well and consistently. It seems like that issue has been solved. So bravo to everyone, because that, I know I'm hearing at home that, or I'm rather not hearing anymore about that confusion. So good.
We've basically, right, we've actually spent some time working with our staff on that, and weekly agenda. So when everything for the week is under something on Canvas called the weekly agenda, everyone seems to know to go there. So it also just takes time for everyone to get the hang of it. Okay, anything else? Any questions for me? Okay, let's turn it over to Shane.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So a key piece in evaluating if we can prudently bring students and staff back to the building is to reflect on how well we've managed our COVID cases or suspected COVID cases with the students and staff that we have engaged last semester. So what you have here is a slide that shows approximately 2,300 students engaged in some type of school activity in which they were either brought to the building, that would be the testing or the in-person service or academic services piece, or students that engaged in fall contact days or engaged in a fall sport. These numbers are low because without the students in the building, the school nurses were not keeping track and were not being reported, illnesses and cases at home. But for these services, the school nurses were able to be involved in the reporting. These students would have been daily screened to make sure that our screening protocols are working, and it gave us an opportunity to test and refine our contact tracing in partnership with the Lake County Health Department. So of the students that participated, we had 26 students that entered the COVID protocol. So what is the COVID protocol? It is a student that has been determined to have come into close contact with someone who is COVID positive or has exhibited a sign of illness while participating in one of these programs. Of these 26, 24 were situations where the student had come into close contact with another. We had one instance in which we had a student not realize that they were COVID positive, participate in a activity that required several other students who participated in that activity to quarantine while contact tracing was conducted, and there was no spread within that activity. Then of the students who entered the COVID protocol, we had 5 that tested positive for COVID. Next slide, please.
Shane, do you know the origin of that infection?
Yes. So I have been part of the contact tracing, and because we've had a small number of students, and this was new, I've had greater visibility on the student contact tracing piece. Of the 5 students, I can tell you precisely how they got COVID due to the Lake County contact tracing, and it was all from exposure to either a family member or a peer, but outside of the school and outside of the school activity.
So to be clear, it wasn't during an activity that you listed up there
That is correct.
or on the grounds of the high school?
That is correct. There may be other COVID cases with students that weren't reported to us, but of the ones that were, I know.
Okay, thanks.
So similarly for staff, staff have been allowed to come and go from the building. So we don't have a specific number of staff that we know have been engaged in school activities, but we have requested that staff inform us when they need to enter the COVID protocol, because on first semester, they'd be eligible to use leave benefits granted by the Family's First Coronavirus Relief Act. So that would have been 10 additional days of FMLA that they could use that did not dip into their personal sick bank. So we did have staff that were very good to inform us when they came into close contact with someone that had COVID, or they were exhibiting symptoms and needed to quarantine and receive medical care or testing. Of the 30 staff that were put into that protocol, several are in this room, one including me. We had 8 staff that actually tested positive, again with the students. I know precisely how those 8 staff, based on contact tracing from the county, how they got COVID. They all received COVID from either their partner or spouse who contracted it at their work location that was not MHS, or they contracted it from a child who was involved in some type of care, and the child was asymptomatic, brought it home and infected the parent. And then we had one case where a staff member got it from their sister. So again, we will continue to monitor all of this information. I anticipate that we will have more staff that will enter into the COVID protocol because they will be around more people. The term I keep using is prudent, because you'll hear later on in this presentation about our relationship with Pediatrust, but in partnering with them, we are always going to err on the side of caution. If we feel that it is prudent that a staff member, even if they test negative but are showing COVID-like symptoms, should quarantine at least for 7 days, because symptoms are showing some sign of illness, even if it's not COVID. We are always going to defer to try to be prudent to make this work, because if we rush into it and there is spread, we will be partnering with the public health department, but we would need to go into an adaptive pause. And so we're going to do everything within our control to mitigate that. Next slide, please. So employee leaves and accommodations. At this, oh, Laura, did you have a question? Okay. So at this time, we have only had 3 staff apply for FMLA leave. Those 3 staff, I anticipate, would have applied for FMLA leave anyway, unrelated to COVID, because they're paternity leaves. So, but that doesn't mean that more staff could apply for this or seek benefits under FMLA. Mike Pope and I are meeting with each department to walk through how to take the leave, how to request accommodation, and answer any questions they can. So that is subject to change, but right now we only have 3 on the books. And then, Aaron, you had mentioned 26 staff who've been approved for ADA accommodations. That encompasses all staff. So that is faculty and support staff and administration. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, back up again. I don't want to stand behind that either. All right, so we just heard about the staff that are going to be working from home. So how are we going to address that? So you asked about the number of the 26. So those teachers, the teachers that are gonna be out, every teacher that's out, we will be required to supervise their classes, right? So I'm teaching from home, someone needs to be in the room with my kids, right? So to help with the numbers, as of right now, all 26 staff members relates to 38, it changed last minute today, 38 supervisions that we need to cover. Some teachers, we have to cover all 5 of their classes. Some teachers, we may have to cover 3 because they co-teach 2 periods and the co-teacher will be in there. Some teachers have an IA that works with them. The IA will be there, so the IA will be in the room with the students. So right now it's at 38 class periods that we would need to cover with supervisions to make those staff members be able to teach from home while we have a staff member supervising the students in the room. So typically our certified staff has a supervision, right? Usually it's study hall, hallway supervision, freshman advisory, things like that. We will still have study hall, but we're using our supervisions a little bit differently now. So we'll have study hall still because there are students that were already assigned to a study hall. We have students that have a free period in their schedule. Typically a free period, you can leave the building, which you still can, but you don't have to. You may not have transportation, and especially in January, you may not want to walk anywhere, right? So we're still planning for those students like they're not going to leave the building. So we're going to over-plan for those students. So that free period, I'm treating it as if it's a study hall. Like they're not going to leave and I need a place for them to be in the building. We just talked about the staff teaching from home. Right now, that's 38 periods that we need right now. And then staff out sick for other reasons, whether someone's in the protocol or they're, whatever reason they need to be home and they can still teach, then we will have a supervision for those classes. So the next bullet would be staff actually out sick. So I put in for a sick day and I'm actually not working. I'm sick. I can't teach today. We're going to cover that the way we're doing it now. So I will, just like I would normally post, have sub plans for a substitute, I'm going to post an asynchronous lesson online. We're doing that currently for remote students. Then I would need a staff member from the high school to still cover and supervise my students, depending on what space is available. We could combine, we could not, just depends. So those will still be supervised by a staff member, but the assignment will be posted asynchronously. And then one thing we are doing, usually if a staff member substitutes for another staff member who's out, they get pay for that. Right now, during their supervision when they're doing it, that's going to be their supervision period. Their first supervision would not be for pay because you're not actually teaching, it's like a study hall. But if they have to do another one, if we ask them, hey, are you willing to cover another class today during your prep period or during your scheduled lunch, which is pretty much a prep period now, and they're willing to do that, then we would pay them for the extra supervision that they would do. So that is how we're planning on covering absences. Obviously, we'll still, earlier in the year, we recessed the substitutes. We didn't get a lot of favorable responses. We reached out to, I believe, 26 subs, and I think we had 2 interested in coming. We'll still work on that, but I'm planning to not have people. I'd rather plan for the worst and hope for the best. So that's the plan to cover all those people that you saw on the last slide. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. So back in October, we asked families to choose whether they would like a remote schedule or a hybrid schedule. And it came back about 54% of our population requested the hybrid. In December, we asked families again, please confirm if you want any changes as we prepare for second semester. The number came back as 54% as well. So as you can see by the demographics or the breakdown, more of our younger students actually are planning on being in a hybrid than our older students. We do have 539 freshmen, so we have over half our freshmen wishing to come back for a hybrid. So the actual number is 1,082, which breaks into 2 equal groups of 541 students for each group. Those groups were determined by where students, what their addresses are. So we're ensuring that all students in the same address are going to go to this on the same day. Same street, same apartment building, same neighborhood, same bus route. We try to keep those consistencies in forming these 2 groups.
Next slide. So as a overview, there's a lot of choices that you might be making tonight. And this is a general statement here. As we go from the remote schedule that we're currently on and transition to the hybrid schedule, we will use 2 remote learning planning days. And so you can see I placed those on the calendar accordingly. We were given 5 by the state at the beginning of the year. We used 3 before semester 1. So we would like to use those 2 remaining remote learning planning days before the start of the hybrid schedule. Okay. I'm going to go into each of these weeks specifically. So if you go to the next slide. So with the remote planning days, we could do 2 things before the transition to a hybrid schedule. If we made it an asynchronous lesson, students may still be contacting their teachers with questions. Teachers may still be having to work on those the results of those asynchronous works at the end of the day. We wanted a clean 2 days for staff to help them make that transition to the hybrid schedule. And so with our remote learning planning days, those are not student attendance days, which allows our staff to be out and completely working on that transition. First of all, I'm going to make a note. Because I laid this over our current calendar, some of you are looking at Thursday, the 21st, and you're saying the class of 25 night, we currently actually have freshmen that are the class of 24. No, that's actually, we have the class of 25 night. That's our current 8th graders. That is on our calendar. We are still doing that in our virtual session. We will, though, have the ability to do freshman orientation on one of these days. We do need our freshmen, because they are freshmen, they've already been a part of our classes, to be available to come into the building. So that's why this needs to be a remote learning planning day. So there's no student attendance. They're not required to be in class. They can come to the building. Likewise, our upperclassmen, link crew leaders, run that program. They orchestrate that and tour the students. They need to be free from class as well. So,
So Anthony.
yes.
So that would mean that you're expecting the entire freshman class and the entire link crew.
Yes, actually, I was going to make a point of that. We will be actually inviting all of our freshmen to come to the freshman orientation. We realize that some of those students may not want to feel comfortable coming in, but we're going to plan for the 539 students to attend freshman orientation. I'll give you a little bit more information in just a minute about that. Next slide. Now, the next week could be the start of the hybrid schedule. Remember, the hybrid schedule still has a red-gray combination. So red days are odds, and gray days are evens. And so by doing a red and gray, you have attended all 8 of your classes. We do still have a yellow day. The yellow day would be all 8 periods. The periods are longer, they're 50-minute periods, but they are remote. So within a week, we can move that yellow day as needed. And so in this example, we do have PSAT in the building. We do have about 100 students coming into the building for testing that day. And we could push the yellow schedule to that day so that we just do testing in the building and not have testing and class at the same time. So it just shows you the flexibility depending on the start date. One more slide. All right, so freshman orientation, like I mentioned, would be open to all of our freshmen, our current freshmen. When they arrive, they would be provided with their schedule and their IDs so that we would start with a brief orientation where we're giving them information about our expectations on entering the building as such, supports that they have virtually and in person. And they will receive a tour of the building so that they can find their classrooms that they would be attending the next week. The piece of this, we will be using Sign Up Genius, will allow students to sign up as they wish to within that day. They can sign up with their siblings, with their friends, with their neighbors, however they want to dice that out. And we'll know exactly how many students are coming and when they're coming in that day. Because we have a lot of our staff, we will have all of our staff working for that transition to the hybrid. This will be run mostly by administration that day, so that we can safely get everybody through in a short time period. It would be about an hour of their presence in the building when they do come. And that would be for also new students, not just freshmen. If we had any transfer students, they will be invited as well.
Can I ask just a clarifying question on the yellow days? Do the teachers have the option of teaching remotely from their classroom, or are they going to be at home teaching remotely on yellow days?
So on yellow days, teachers may teach in the building if they wish, but they may also be at home.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, I need to, yeah, I'm pretty confident that was the intent. So, the one, can I go back one slide real quick? No. Sorry, got lost there. What I wanted to, no, let's try, we're okay. I think I got it.
A couple questions.
Yes.
One is, you mentioned that the 541 groups,
Yes.
you're doing by location, so you're making sure that siblings and such might be together. Does that mean that you are targeting bus routes, or are the bus routes going to go anywhere, so any student who needs to come on that day can do so?
We targeted bus routes, so that if I think we're typically running around 17 bus routes. All right. We just said we're gonna take this half on one day and this half on the other day.
So if some student needs to come in for some reason and it's not their normal day, they would have to find transportation, or they're not allowed to, or I don't know.
Typically, we wouldn't be planning for them to come in. However, you'll hear a little bit later about how students will have the opportunity to use that afternoon time.
Yes.
And so we'll talk about that in a minute. Also, you mentioned last week, Wednesday, about possibility of maybe freshmen coming in for a full week, or I'm sorry, for classes first, before the rest of the school did. That's still an opportunity. However, in doing so, we do have around, again, 300 freshmen who will be doing the hybrid schedule. Break them into two groups, because if you brought all 300 at one time, I will guarantee we will not be social distancing. We will have too many kids in too many classes. So you would have to split the kids into two groups. That means that you'll have to have one group do a red grade and then the other group do a red grade. So it would just mean that you're delaying the rest of the school starting a hybrid for 1 week.
And what you guys have planned gets to the objective I think we were talking
I
about.
think so too. It was just to get the freshmen in the building before the rest of the kids, which you guys nailed it.
You've addressed that. A second question. Last spring, the PSAT, SAT schedule kind of went sideways and got delayed. Have we caught up? I don't know.
So we did not do any testing last spring.
Right.
And then the testing that was mentioned earlier tonight was for seniors who should have tested as juniors last spring.
SAT.
Majority of those seniors did attend. There are a handful that did not, and they will have the opportunity to test with the juniors this spring.
So this is prior juniors in January, and they'll take the SAT later
So
this year?
Yes, our current juniors will take the SAT in April.
Okay. And then my last question is, you mentioned the link connections. If I recall, there is a thing you've done in the past where you've had individual link students reach out to individual new students. Did we do that this year, and are we planning to do that for these incoming 8th graders?
So that's something we would need to build into this plan. We did not do it at the beginning of the year. Everything kind of got sideways because of some of the snafus we had with freshman orientation. And we were learning at that point. With the reinstitution of freshman orientation, we certainly can. And so as we, depending on what the determination is tonight, we'll walk back into that tomorrow in that discussion and make plans accordingly.
Yeah, so regardless, I think it would be great for students who are new to Mundelein that some individual reaches out to them, and if we haven't already, to kind of say, how are you doing, how's it going, and have an individual touch point. And seeing heads nod, I think that others think that's.
Just to piggyback on that, are new students not part of the freshman opportunity to come through?
No, we'll invite the
They'll be
new
invited.
students, like if we had a junior that was a transfer student, we'll invite them as well.
Okay.
They're typically, we're talking about ones or twos, we're not talking about maybe a handful of students.
Thank you.
Actually, Peter, I think if you slide over, it actually says freshman and new student.
That's what I think, that's my impression, yeah.
All right, Ms. Ortiz, next slide, please.
Well, Happy New Year to everybody. I know I was personally glad to see 2020 in the rearview mirror. I'm just going to mention athletics. I appreciate everybody's gone through this. Our goal, and many of you have known me for a number of years, our goal is to get our kids involved in activities and athletics because they tend to do better in school. And I know with the pandemic, it's affecting kids emotionally and socially. What's been very hard for me as an athletic director, I can stand here and tell you that next year on September 24th, we're playing Libertyville in homecoming football. We already have our officials assigned for the girls basketball tournament next Thanksgiving. I don't know what we're doing next week yet because the IHSA right now with IDPH still hasn't given us guidance. But what I can tell you, when we come back to school, athletics is going to take place. Last week on January 6th, the IHSA finally met with leadership from the Illinois Department of Public Health and the governor's office. What came out of that meeting was not the most positive information for us, but they did say if we move through the tiers and the mitigations that are in place show that our numbers are going to be going down, then they're going to start opening things back up, and our low-risk sports will have an opportunity to start up again. Medium risk and high risk sports right now are a question mark. On the 7th, the IHSA sent a letter to all of the Illinois high school athletic directors and basically told us that they're having a meeting tomorrow with the board of directors, and they know that this can has been kicked down the road far enough, and if we don't get more guidance, they're going to have to make some difficult decisions. What does that mean? I don't know. But what I do know is we played 6 fall sports. We still have 24 that are going to operate here, hopefully in the winter, spring, summer, and which is in a short window. I don't know what those sports are going to look like, but what I can tell you, we will offer in-person programming with everything that we're allowed to do, because I think that it's very important for a high school kids experience. Our practices are going to have to start at different times. 1, because of the weather, 2, because of our facilities, and we're going to stagger those times to maximize facility use. We've had discussions internally that this also may include us having to do things outside of the box, which we have never done before, which would be doing some things on Saturdays and even possibly Sundays, considering how many sports are going to get put into this window. So right now I don't have the answers, but I can tell you that we're meeting as a conference and we're meeting as a school, and we're going to make it work for our kids. And I'm a big advocate for our kids that want to return.
When will we know, like, what sports will be returning? Like, when do you anticipate that? I know, it's a $1 million question that
Right.
everybody wants to know.
And really, I'm just being honest. The IHSA has been very transparent with us. They're having a very difficult time with the Illinois Department of Public Health and the Lieutenant Governor's office in getting specific answers, which is, I want to be appropriate. It's very frustrating, and we want to do what's best for our kids. And Shane presented the data earlier, and I'll stand up here as the athletic director, and I will tell you that we had between over 750 student athletes that came through our doors. And with all of the protocols and Kevin Quinn's job that he's been doing with making sure that that we're following everything that we can, we didn't have the spread factor and we didn't have issues. And right now I'm watching kids going across the state border bowling up in Wisconsin, playing basketball in Indiana on AAU teams. And it's happening across the state. In Southern Illinois, they're going into Missouri. So I'm a firm believer that we can do it here in the high school, and we can do it better than where they're getting it out in those the AAU travel circles. But we're trying to get, I reached out to Senator McConkey, and we're just trying to get the state leadership to listen and look at that data.
If students are already participating outside, will that prevent them from participating here, or doesn't affect
No,
it?
it doesn't, because right now we're on a complete pause with the IHSA, and when we do start back up, then they cannot go and do that.
Okay, that was my question.
And I mentioned the last time when I think I answered Peter's question incorrectly, but I mentioned that the IHSA did change the bylaw for this year for a sport like volleyball. They're supposed to have played in the fall, but they are going to allow volleyball to play volleyball and club volleyball at the same time this year, which they've never done that before.
Yeah. Baseball and softball too.
Right.
Troy, how would you say that the North Suburban Conference athletic directors are there other goals similar? All align together?
Absolutely. I think it's a strong conference, and we wholeheartedly together believe the same thing.
That's awesome.
Our goal is to get our kids back participating.
Good.
So do we.
Thank you. Anything that you can do to help us.
So activities means clubs,
Well, Mike's going to talk about the activities piece.
Yeah, and now mine is nowhere near as complicated as Troy's with the HSA. Right, so, I mean, we've been running our activities all year, most of them virtually. Some have been coming to the building, like robotics. Science Olympiad has been in the building. We've had quite a few. But most of those will still take place virtually. They've been going really well, safe, book club, things like that. They do well virtually, right? The approved activities, there's some band that came, choir, things like that. Theater, obviously we had some theater performances. Those are still approved to take place in person, okay? Now, as more clubs and activities want to be in person, that the sponsor wants to be, and the students are all about it, there could be more approvals of other things in person as well. What I don't want to do is have students that are remote get left out because we're not doing it in person. We could try it concurrently, but that could get a little messy. So there could be more activities approved. And obviously activities, all of our activity sponsors teach at the school and work at the school, so we wouldn't start until 3:30 p.m. because our staff needs to finish the workday first. Like I said, not nearly as complicated as Troy's.
Have we had a fair amount of students participating?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I honestly, right now, I think we've had a few less. I don't have the exact numbers, but it's actually really, most of our clubs are running. There's 3, I believe, that we gave them the option to not run this year. So teachers, if a teacher, I'm overwhelmed, I don't know if I can do this with remote teaching and all the new things that we were throwing at them, we did give them the option to, you know what, I'm not going to do it this year. We made sure the teachers and the students knew, and then we promised those teachers, yes, you can still come back next year and you don't have to reapply. You can still have your job back. We may have some staff that weren't doing it that may now be interested in doing it that we're back, but I don't have those yet. That may happen.
we were talking about how we're looking for ways to get students connected and engaged, and as you had said, the data says that helps with them academically. So have you guys done anything differently or beyond what you've done in the past to remind students about the activities and make it really accessible so that maybe they didn't think of it when they came in as a freshman, but they'd be interested now?
Yeah, so we promote a little bit. One thing we've done way better since I got here, it was what, third year now? I think year 3. I've been wanting to improve the website every year. And this year became the best time ever to improve our clubs and activities website, and now it is. So all of everything you'd ever want on our activities website is there. Every single club we offer, what times they meet, the Zoom links, all the information about it. Different sponsors have been sending things out to students, asking them, encouraging them. They'll hear about it at freshman orientation again. The page at the Calming Corner I just mentioned earlier has obviously all the links for social work and all those things, but it also has all the clubs and activities and sports and how to sign up and all those things, because those obviously would help with your mental health as well. So yes, but most of it has been in a very much improved activities website that was on my list that clearly moved up the list this year because it became very, very important to have that website updated.
Well, I will give a shout out to the coaches, the sports that started to run or were allowed to have practice. Coaches have been very good about trying to connect. I know my daughter played. Coaches very much like, here's what we're doing. They sent out workouts that they could do at home to keep up in shape. I know swimming was the same way. So shout out to all the coaches out there trying to keep their athletes in shape and ready for when we can come back.
Thank you. I'll be up again soon.
Okay, this is something that we have been talking about on and off all semester. I know we've talked a little bit about it in October when we were thinking about going to a hybrid. And there's lots of reasons for this. As we talked about before, even students who choose full remote may need some extra in-person instruction. And so we are still working out the details and the logistics of this, but this is basically the premise of what we're going to offer in the afternoon. So during the asynchronous time of the schedule, we will have an opportunity for students who are on hybrid and students who are full remote to come into the building to work with teachers, to have a study hall or quiet place to do their work and to get stable internet. So potentially students could be in the building 4 days a week. So they would be in their 2 days a week, they're in their hybrid, so they come to the building. And then the other 2 days, right, their remote days, they could get on a school bus that will pick them up and bring them to school. And like I said, remote students, and I know they chose remote, but obviously the afternoon is a way different situation. There'll be far fewer students in the building, so they may want to come in to get extra in-person support as well. And what is nice is there's so many different opportunities. So students maybe just want to sit and, we'll have some staff in with them, but they just want to have a study hall type of environment. And other students will want to meet one-on-one with maybe multiple teachers or the math lab instructional assistants. So there'll be a variety of options for students. We will follow all health and safety regulations. So students will be assigned a location. If they are going to meet with a teacher, the teacher will come and get them from those larger spaces and take them to their classroom and escort them back. And so, like I said, we're going to make sure that we allow for contact tracing and all the regulations that we would have in the morning. We put estimated start date to be determined because we need to get a lay of the land of hybrid first. And so, we hope to have a couple weeks in this worked out for the afternoon. Slide. Professional development. So I know this kind of came up at the special board meeting last week. Again, as I said in October, hybrid is going to be challenging. And lots of schools are obviously going to it, and they're doing something called concurrent instruction, which we will do. So it's this idea that you're teaching students in the classroom and students at home simultaneously. And so you can imagine, Laura, you saw it when we did the simulation, right?
I did.
So we've learned a lot because we have teachers going on a hybrid. And so one of the things that we plan to do as part of our professional development is we have some staff from 3 or 4 different high schools who are going to, make a 2-minute spotlight about the kinds of the wins and the challenges of hybrid and to troubleshoot. So we're going to try to get some feedback from teachers from other schools. And then we also have a couple administrators and a teacher who's going to sit in on our professional development sessions next week and just answer questions. Because that's part of the problem is we haven't done this. So we can provide a lot of training, but it's the teachers who've actually been there, done that, got the t-shirt, who can help us, right, prepare a little bit more. So those remote planning days next week will be really critical. We are training teachers in 4 different areas. So 1, the technology. That's pretty tricky. We have figured it out though, so that's a positive. 2, health and safety protocols within the classroom. So how do you help students understand? How do you set the groundwork and communicate those expectations? We will have building-wide information that's communicated to students. And they're probably going to hear every single class period, and it doesn't matter, right? They need to hear it over and over again. We'll look at lesson planning on a hybrid, and then the other session will be on management on a hybrid. So if you think about it, students are coming into your classroom. The students on Zoom are in the waiting room, and so you have to let them in. And then you have to take attendance. You have to make sure the students are not pulling down their mask, right? So there's lots of moving parts. You're transitioning. You have kids here doing breakouts. You have kids at home need to go into the virtual breakout. So we are going to really work with our staff on how do you make those transitions? How do you manage a classroom like that? And teachers from the other schools will be very helpful in that way because they've had to do it. So February 12th is another in-service. Once we get into the hybrid, there'll be a lot of reflecting, troubleshooting that will be done on the 12th, and we will continue to provide teachers with time and time and time to work with their professional learning communities and to do some independent planning. Because as we know, lots and lots of work went into the remote semester and hybrid. We won't be able to take everything they did first semester and put it the same in the second semester. They're going to have to make adjustments for a new bell schedule and a hybrid environment. Any questions for me?
Stacy, I just had a quick question on that asynchronous time. Will there be like a set schedule that all the teachers are following? So this is when I'm available asynchronously, this is my office hours.
Exactly. So all staff will get a 45-minute lunch break at the end of the synchronous part of the school. I'm trying not to say end of the school day because it is not the end of the school day. It is transitioning to asynchronous. So from roughly 12:45 to 1:30 will be a full staff lunch. And then what we're trying to do with office hours is we're actually trying to stagger them. So if a student, you think about those students who are coming in, all their teachers are not going to be busy with office hours at the same time. So we're looking at doing it by department. So for example, like math and English would have office hours 1 hour, and then the other hour, the flip side of that would be the other two departments. And then we'll probably split applied arts and fine and performing arts. So yes, that, and we've been working with that schedule. Mike is working with the schedule committee to finalize that.
Will there be, I know you're gonna have the 2 planning days. Say it was someone like myself who might be slightly technologically challenged. Is there a support person or a mentor that will be able to kind of quick troubleshoot, if you have an issue? Because when you're in the middle of your lesson, it's very difficult if you run into a problem. Will there be someone there to support them that could run in and help them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have Catherine Serby. You may or may not know her. She is our tech trainer, and she's wonderful, and she kind of is always on call. We also have a tech committee that is made up of people who really do understand the technology and who can help teachers troubleshoot it. The challenge is finding the staff with flexibility to be on call. Catherine definitely has that. Some of our administrators have that. And honestly, our tech team will be really instrumental. So there are a few members on our tech staff who are constantly responding to those kind of situations in regular school, and they would continue to do so in hybrid. But the goal is to get everybody set up and have them practice. That's one of the things that they're starting to come in. It's like, go and practice your technology. It's not that bad once you get in and kind of practice it. If I can do it, really anybody can do it. You should have seen my early simulations. They were rough, but I did figure it out. It just takes time. You have to try it a few times. Anything else?
I just want to say too, before we move on, I want to commend you and everybody else that made this happen, because I can matter-of-factly tell you, I have colleagues at numerous high schools that are not getting anything like this before they go back. They're being thrown right into the fire and being said, here you go, figure it out. I have one colleague that was told to come in on Martin Luther King Day if he wanted to figure out how to do everything. So what you guys are doing is far more than what a lot of teachers are getting in a lot of buildings.
And I appreciate that. And the message we're trying to You can come work at Montauk. It's a great place to be. So yeah, I mean, this has been a really hard year for teachers. I hope some people are listening because I commend them for all their efforts. And there are a lot of things out of our control, but looking at our circle of influence, what can we do? We can support our teachers. And this is the way that we can do it. And there are so many wonderful staff, instructional coaches who really have helped a tremendous amount with this. So yeah, it's a big team of people who help support.
Being technologically challenged, I appreciate that for the staff, because there's nothing worse than something that can be fixed in a minute that you spent a half hour trying to deal with your students and not being able to successfully resolve it quickly. So yeah.
And I think that's probably going to happen in the first couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just going to have to be really patient with each other and with our students. And, honestly, our students are so forgiving. They're very gracious with us. It's like we get all stressed out, but we're like, it's okay. It's going to be okay. So it probably, to some extent it will happen. And I hope to be able to present in maybe the February or March board meeting to tell you how awesome it's going. But also to let you know that, the teachers have had to troubleshoot because, like I said, they're pretty resilient. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
We're gonna transition a little bit to the mitigations and safety and support in our buildings. The first thing I'm gonna talk to you about is the Illinois Department of Public Health and the CDC wants us to have a screening process. And as many of you are aware, when you go into your workplaces or a doctor's office, there's those magical questions as well as temperature and have you tested recently for COVID and things like that of that nature. So what we've done as a district is we've created these plastic blue cards. They're just like the size of your driver's license. I believe you may have seen them too on your tour. But so these blue cards, we've got one side in English and one side in Spanish. And every morning, we're asking that our parents certify their children, because 18 and under, parents need to be involved in this process, to confirm that the students don't have any COVID symptoms and that they presented with a temperature below 100.4 in the morning. So by having your child have that blue card and take it to school with them in the morning, that signifies that you as the parent are aware that your child does not have any of these symptoms. The student will then take the blue card, and if they're a bus rider, they'll show the blue card to their bus driver. The bus drivers know that our procedure will be, the expectation is that for a student to ride the bus, they have a blue card. We will make some reserved rows in the front if it's like a first time issue that someone doesn't have their blue card and they really need a ride. So there'll be some essentially supports to get the student to school, but then isolate. So till we get the questions answered. Do you want to ask something?
After your last bullet.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So I'll run through. So then the student, in that case with the bus, again, would show their blue card. If the student is a walker or is driven to school, when they enter school through the front entry door, they'll be expected to also show the blue card. So it's just different depending on how you arrived at school. In all cases, we have decided as a district to add an additional layer so that the blue card itself is the layer of expectation, right? We're adding an additional layer that we will be doing temperature checks upon entry to the school building. So with that additional layer, you may be wondering, how do all these logistics work? So two things will happen prior to the first day of hybrid. All of our students in hybrid, we have a letter prepared that's going to be mailed by the end of the week, where for each household, so Peter, I'll pick on you, in your household, you have more than one high schooler in, one right now.
Oh, there's two.
Two in the building. So you'll get two blue cards if they're both doing hybrid in your envelope with a letter that kind of explains and outlines this process. And then next week, families will receive a Google form that they'll basically sign off on, indicating that they agree to follow this procedure daily. We're asking that the parents sign off on that Google form. Again, that will be released next week following this mailing, so that parents, again, can engage in the process, and we know that parents and students are committed to the process. Questions about the blue cards?
The blue card is a physical card.
Mhm.
It doesn't get signed, right?
So there is a white spot where we could Sharpie the names. I don't know if we're gonna do that before we mail them or allow for families. to do
Second
that.
question, can they create a digital copy of that blue card on their phone?
So we wrestled with that a little bit for starters, with this whole linking piece. We've talked about that. I think the concern there is the blue card authorizes the student to come in the building per their parent. So if they start to use the digital card but left the blue card at home, it's hard for us to really be able to determine if the parent authorized their attendance that day.
So if they lose the blue card,
We ordered plenty of blue
they
cards.
can't come into the building?
So then what we can do is we can call we would call the parents, and then we would look at like, if a student has lost by the third time, if the student has lost the blue card for like the third occasion, then we'd really have to have a conversation, like, we need you to take this seriously, because these are part of our safety protocols, to stay in hybrid.
Jamie, the students who are not on the hybrid schedule but want to attend in the afternoons for support or activities would also need the same
Yeah,
process, right?
we will, so as that phase of students becomes known, we'll be able to mail probably like a slightly different flavor of that letter to those families as well. Go through the same process. The other thing I failed to mention is something I'm super excited about, and this came through actually from the advocacy of our nursing staff. We do have some families who may not have access to a thermometer, may not have a thermometer at home. So later this week, a survey will be going out to all our Mundelein families in District 120 and District 75, asking if they don't have a thermometer, if they need one. And then we have a process in place, working on donations as well as purchases between the districts to be able to provide those thermometers as well as some education around that.
Jamie, I don't know if this is a question for you or just everyone in general, and I'm sure people at home listening are wondering. If we're to move forward with this plan, when will families be notified which group and which days of the week their children are going to school?
I have a draft letter already.
Okay,
It would be out by Thursday morning.
okay.
Are the blue cards, associated with each student? Like, is there an ID number or something on each blue card, so it can't be like swapped between the kids or?
So the white labeling is for, like, a Sharpie works great on there. So you bring up a good question. I hadn't actually thought about us doing that ahead of time. We could. So we printed all the letters today, but we haven't started stuffing the envelopes. We can get the names on the cards if that might be better. I was planning to send them blank, assuming that then the families would mark them up, but you bring up a good point in terms of sharing the blue card. So we'll add that to our list for this week.
These are like plastic laminated cards,
Mhm.
so they have
Sorry,
to provide
Siobhan.
this and their ID every
I
day.
don't know if you want me to keep
Oh,
passing
yeah.
it around, but
Do you mind if I touch
you know,
the top?
There's a,
hand sanitizer.
There's a wipe.
Or a
I should have brought
There's a wipe right there.
Look at that.
Oh, I have a bottle of spray.
I'll hold it with the corner of the white. So yeah, so.
Oh, hey, there we go.
So yeah, here at the bottom, we can
attach it on their
We
lanyard.
can,
with
yeah,
the
they
right-
could if they wear a lanyard, if that's what they prefer. With the younger kids, we're actually sending home lanyards. With the older kids, we just thought aesthetic wise, it could be their personal preference. But yeah, it's got on one side in English and one side in Spanish, all the symptoms described, as well as the final bullet is any other COVID symptoms added by the CDC or Illinois Department of Public Health, since we know that this has slightly changed from time to time. So yeah, so this will be the card, and it's just very easy to carry, so.
I have to say, I really, really love this particular element of getting back to school because, it does give the families an opportunity to be involved in what's happening, what's going on. It's not like it's all on the teachers and the admin to figure out what's going on. It's like, the families are involved. So I really like it.
Thanks. Yeah, we're excited, but thank you for the feedback because now we'll figure out a way to actually have the names before they go in the mail. Okay, that's it for this time.
I'll need to see.
Thank you, Jamie.
I'm sure kids don't feel like doing it. It's fun parents after a few days anyway,
Me again. Feel like I'm just running
Welcome
around.
back.
Yeah, back and forth. But- All right, so I'm gonna go through some more of our mitigations that are in place and some of the expectations in the building for our staff and students and visitors. Again, and you guys are well aware of these, but those at home may not be. Everyone in the building, obviously, must wear a mask. We will have masks available. If a student or visitor does not have one, there will be some at the front. Keeping a distance of 6 feet separation between people. We will be maintaining that as much as possible in all areas. The reason I say as much as possible, passing periods, you're gonna pass people. right? Like you're not gonna, it's gonna happen. No. So I just want to make sure that's known. And it will be maintained in all classrooms. We will have a 6 feet distance between every desk and every classroom. Staff will be in the hallways, monitoring passing periods, making sure we follow these rules. I've moved classrooms as needed to assure social distance. So as Anthony reported earlier, we have 541 students in each group. Those groups were they might have been put in today. They're going to get put in tonight into Power School or tomorrow. They've been given to Sherry to put into Power School. So that will be going home. Oh, by the way, I have to give a shout out to Randy Lerner on this. I just have to, because he did all of that in a spreadsheet and it was amazing. And I really needed him. So Randy, if you're listening, thank you very much. Because I'd still be working on it 2 weeks from now on the spreadsheet because he's way faster than I am.
Yeah.
So thank goodness for Randy. So yeah, we've had to move classrooms. So out of, I can't remember the numbers now he gave me, but we went through it. Out of all the classes, all the periods, right now, the way we split the students with transportation, there are currently 4 classrooms that I had to move because there's on a Wednesday, 3rd period, or not Wednesday, because it's yellow. Tuesday, 4th period, biology has 13 kids and the room fits 11. So I had to move that, right? So it's not, I'm making it sound really simple and it's not, but the split of the kids was really, really good. Randy killed it. No sharing of objects, materials when possible, and if so, we're cleaning and disinfecting in between. Ms. Ortiz, you go to the next slide. Protocols are in place for students that need to check in with someone. So if you need to see your counselor, we got to talk to the dean. So staff will know all those. The deans are working on the communication out to the staff to how to follow these protocols. If you need to see a staff member in the building or out of the building for that matter. Rooms have been set aside in the schedule. So Kevin might talk about this later, but if we have an instance of COVID in the building and it's during the day and we know this, we find out this student has it and they're in our rooms, right? We have to empty that classroom. Kevin will talk, they're going to disinfect the classroom. In the meantime, I have to have a certain number of, I don't know if there's a magic number, but I have rooms every period set aside in case we need to evacuate A105. They can go down to A109. I'll have a list every period of where we need to go if and when possible, or if and when needed. Again, staff and students will clean their own desks and other items before and after using. Grouping of students in the hybrid, by having the students grouped, obviously we don't have 1,000 kids in the building at once. Right now we have 541 each day, which again limited the number of kids in any one space at any one time, and we're moving them if it's too many. We'll have assigned seats in the classroom, obviously to make sure we know where every student is for contact tracing and making sure their desks are staying put.
Mike,
Yes,
for the cleaning their own desks, you don't just mean like gathering their stuff. They're gonna have like a
Yes,
spray
yes,
and a
yep,
wipe and all
yep,
that
they're
stuff.
gonna- That's
Okay.
part of their, if you're willing to come back and do this, you're gonna do it.
Okay.
We need you to clean, and honestly, the students can clean when they get there too, to make sure, right? But when they get there, and then of course, when they leave, we'll be disinfecting that. Staff, students, visitors, everyone will be expected to follow all these expectations. We're gonna limit unnecessary visitors, like if there's a meeting you need to have and you can do it on the phone, you can do it over Zoom, great. If it needs to be in person, that's different. Visitors will have limited access. You're not gonna be able to just walk the halls and go into different offices. You're gonna have to go exactly where you need to go. We're gonna know where you're going, how many people can fit in that space. Any visitors, now this is the bad part of it, I hate saying this, but it needs to be said, right? Anyone unwilling to follow our expectations, you are not coming in the building. Like, you have to do this. And if you get in the building and you don't follow it, you will be asked to leave in our SRO. Like, we can't have that. And it will be taken seriously. Same thing, students, if you're unwilling to follow expectations, I'm imagining you're going to follow the expectations, but if you don't, we'll have to have a conversation that may include, maybe you need to be remote if you're not willing to follow our expectations of the building. And I did want to put this at the end because, common mistakes are made. We're going to address it appropriately. So, for example, on Monday, I was in my office. Twice, I took 3 steps out of my office before I realized I hadn't put my mask on to go to the bathroom. I'm not going to kick myself out of the building, right? Honest mistake. Let's try to do better the next time. So if a student accidentally makes a mistake and it's clear, we're going to handle this right. So it's not a 0 tolerance. But if you're literally doing it on purpose, then it's a different conversation. Okay. But I wanted to make sure that was in there so we don't have the first mistake a student made. Why aren't we making it go remote? That's not what we're trying to do.
Hey, Mike,
Yes.
real quick, we haven't talked about this, but what's the role, is there a new role or expectations of the SRO that's in the school with all this?
Well, right now, one would be this, right, to making sure, but he'll be in the hallways, he'll be helping us out. I mean, obviously, anytime if there's a crime committed in school, right, we talk to him. Now, he goes to classrooms. I don't know what we'll be doing, if we'll be doing that now. He helps with driver's ed. He does a lot of things in the building, but we are having him back. He hasn't been working with us, obviously, all year. We haven't needed him, but he will be coming back once we return. We may have to kind of see how that goes and what we need him to do. It may be a little different, but I mean, Steve's great. He's willing to do everything. Officer Balo, if you guys know him, he's an awesome guy. He goes above and beyond. He comes to sporting events. The kids know him. He'll be great in the hallways. Hey, make sure you're so he'll be part, just like he's part of the staff. He just happens to wear a police uniform and carry a gun, right? So he'll be just
Be
like
a good
everybody else.
motivator. I mean, I
He's a
know
great
most of the
guy.
kids love him.
Yeah, I wish we could keep him forever. All right, any other questions on mine? I think that's my last one.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this slide is also quite exciting. I'm going to share a little bit about our relationship with PediaTrust. So PediaTrust is a healthcare group in Lake County that many of you have probably heard of. And we have partnered with them recently in this last month to begin providing us with guidance and regular consultation. In fact, meeting with them every Tuesday and Friday with the different subgroups. So Tuesday, Shane, myself, and Dr. Myers. And then on Fridays, we're able to consult with our nursing staff from both districts, actually, with Dr. Friedman from PediaTrust. So he's been a wealth of information, extremely accessible and extremely helpful, and has a critical eye. And as was mentioned earlier, I think by Shane, he errs on that side of safety, and has just given us already so much valuable feedback. So what he's able to do is support us in looking at our protocols, examining kind of like our equipment, our PPE for our staff, and looking at workspaces, looking kind of at, providing guidance in terms of how the hallways are laid out and different spaces, and just supporting us in setting up the best mitigation possible. So he's been really great already. He also, in working with PediaTrust in this partnership, we were able to launch yesterday, sending to our staff accessibility for our staff to have direct access to COVID testing. So if you suspect you have symptoms and you are a staff member, there is a quick and easy link that the staff can fill out. Immediately goes to the PediaTrust staff, and they can get scheduled immediately within about a half day's time. And PediaTrust, the nearest office or their testing site right now is right over by Hawthorne Mall, so not too far from Mundelein High School. So that's really great. And it is the Sophia Rapid Test. It's a nasal swab test that they're utilizing, which is highly accurate, and results are provided within the hour. So we're just really excited for that partnership. And from yesterday to today, we've already had a lot of staff interest. So that's great. Additionally, Dr. Friedman is helping support us as we look at pre-screening. We know that it's just not, it would be a little bit feasible, tricky, and how effective to do screening for all staff or all students. So looking at like what is the best subgroup or kind of phase one of screening. So we're in the process of that right now. There will be more to come. Currently, a suggestion does include our self-contained special education populations as an area, or as a spot, if you will, to prioritize first in terms of looking at the staff and the students that work in an environment where sometimes that 3 to 6 foot barrier is a little bit more challenging, and utilizing screening once we determine that pathway for that subgroup. Additionally, Dr. Friedman and the PediaTrust practice is partnering with the Stevenson, where we're part of that closed pod for vaccination. So we have all of those connections together as well, and that support. And Dr. Friedman is working with us on town hall meetings for staff and for community. And so next week, we haven't released the dates and times yet because we're still finalizing those for staff, but there will be staff opportunities to hear a presentation and then also ask questions directly with Dr. Friedman and with our nurses. So I got to give a kudos to our nurses for the hard work they've been doing. Also in supporting Kevin Quinn and his team, and just as we get the building ready, and again, put those safety and mitigation measures in place. So we'll be having an opportunity for staff next week, as well as next Wednesday night and next Thursday night, we will have community evenings, Wednesday in English and Thursday in Spanish at 6:30 PM, where our nurses will present, the nurses actually from both districts, as well as Dr. Friedman on the entire spectrum of things related to COVID, from what you can do as families at home, following good hygiene and PPE efforts and things like that, all the way to our Blue Card certification, and he's even going to touch on vaccination, facts, and myths. So we're really excited for those evenings, and maybe you guys, people online, and then all of you could join us as well. And so those will be next Wednesday and Thursday night. And then, yeah, just having that relationship with doctors for direct access and asking questions. So far, we've been able to take questions from staff and get them answered very quickly.
Comment. Last week, what I had asked for, I think it was last week, was to see what's different, to see what's coming, not just to see what we've already done.
Mhm.
That's a game changer. That's different, and that's not something that everybody else is doing. That's impressive. Thank you.
I think you're really, I hope you can tune in. We'll tape record the webinars too with the nurses and Dr. Friedman next week, but I'm super psyched for that as well. And I know Kevin has some new things.
Yeah, I think you're about to be outdone.
Yeah, definitely.
Wait a minute, what's the screening for? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Sure, like a COVID screening, just so a proactive pre-screening, so not necessarily for symptomatic staff, but a drop-in screening. So I know at Stevenson, Aaron, you were sharing that they can get screened, is it weekly or?
Weekly,
Okay.
yeah, the faculty is on Tuesdays.
Yeah, so there's just different ways that you can screen for subgroups, you can screen your whole staff. So we've been looking at what's the best way to implement that screening, and who would the subgroup be if we wanted to add that screening in addition to testing.
Well, it'll be nice for staff to have a testing facility so close that if there's concern,
Immediate.
immediate response.
Good evening.
Hey, Kevin.
Hello. Hello.
Long time no see.
Pardon me?
Long time no see.
It is. In the fall of 2019, our nurses contacted me and they noticed an uptick in flu cases within inside of our building. And it became more pronounced as we approached winter break. So that winter break of 2019, 2020, we focused on mitigations. We talked about that. We talked about what we can do when staff comes back into the building in January of 20. How can we limit this? Because it continued. We know more now about what that was, but we approached it that way. So during that break, the nurses were in. We had it, and I have to take a minute to say how unfortunate we are to have such professional nurses. That we have a tremendous nursing staff. It's just such a dynamic group. So, but we met over that winter break, and we discussed what can we do as staff comes back. How can we limit this? How can we protect ourselves? So we talked about, during that break, we ordered hand sanitizer. Every office, every classroom had a box of Kleenex. That seems woefully small right now, but we did that, and we had the conversations. We talked about airflow within inside of our building. I was able to explain to them the impact of increased airflow, fresh intake. We pressurize our building, so we have to have the amount of air brought in equates to the amount of air exhausted, how it's filtered. We had tremendous conversations. It helped me learn what they were looking at also. And so we did that. We brought in more outside areas. Staff and students came back in. We increased it. Typically in the winter, we would bring in 10% outside air. We brought that up to 20%, 50%. Oftentimes when we needed to, in the evenings, we would bring it up higher as temperature permitted so that we wouldn't freeze a coil. So those are things that we started to do. That was in January of 2020. In March, we all became aware of COVID. And as the students were leaving in March of 13, we said, what can we do? So we circled with our custodial vendor, GSF. The parent company's out of France. They have a large presence in the healthcare industry throughout Europe. They're in the academic field inside of the United States. So we said to them, what can we do? What do we need? Give us efficacy statements on your chemicals. What can we do as far as cleaning protocols? How can we move forward? So we right away, we grabbed onto some electrostatic units, electrostatic chemical. What that is the chemicals pass through a gun with an electrode on the end. It electrifies that chemical. That positive chemical hits onto a negative surface and it encompasses it and it eradicates it. So that's a 99.99% effectiveness on COVID-19, on all bacteria. So we incorporated that into our protocols, and we went through the building from March until we stand here today. We're still going through that process. We're trying to perfect that process. So from March, then as we came into the summer, they allowed sports to come back in. So we defined our protocols. How do we clean afterwards? How do we sanitize? How do we take personal responsibility for what we do when we're in the buildings? How we interact with our students? How do we get them to comply? Troy's staff did a tremendous job. Everybody, we didn't have an incident with our sports programs. We're all aware of surrounding communities that had those. We did not. He was extremely vigilant in reinforcing what our mitigations were with his staff. And as they came back into the building, the same thing. Here's the process. You have a kit. It's a cleaning kit. It has hand sanitizer. It has this spray that has that efficacy for COVID. They each had a kit with that in it, and paper towel to disinfect their spaces, hand sanitizer, mask wearing. We reinforce that. Those kits are the same kits that we currently have in all of our classrooms and all of our offices. So as students finish the day, they're going to use that same, the disinfectant that we have. They're going to use the paper towels that are in there. It's the same process that we've been following. So it's been an evolution for us. We know more. We've been educated more on everything. So we've incorporated electrostatic. We've incorporated some of the behavioral aspects of how we treat the building, how we treat one another, how do we hold each other accountable for your space. You were just in that space. The coaching staff did a great job. As students, as groups came back, our robotics group, Manny Aldana's done a fantastic job with that, bringing kids back in, engaging them, maintaining distancing, cleaning, disinfecting, making us aware of where he's at, how he's doing things. And so we've been very fortunate. And it's an evolution. And so as we prepare for staff to come back, more technology, more processes, we're more aware of that. This unit up here that we're going to talk about is UVC. That you've seen the demonstration yesterday. UVC has been used since the late 1800s. In the 1930s, William Wells did a study. In the 1930s, William Wells did a study. He was trying to figure out how airborne bacteria and virus was transmitted and how we could prohibit that, how we could stop it. One of the things that he was looking at is how measles was being transmitted inside of the Philadelphia public schools. He had tremendous success with upper air UV light, UV disinfecting. It was a very effective system. It proven efficacy in the Philadelphia area for measles. Hospitals have been using it for a long time. There were some concerns about how the technology, how the equipment that incorporated the technology was utilized. So it kind of fell off to the wayside for a period of time until the late 70s and in 1980s. Then we started to utilize that. They realized that its effectiveness on tuberculosis. And so they started to develop the equipment. Surgical rooms use this now to limit the surgical site incidents that they have because of infection from bacteria. So they've incorporated UVC. Back in the beginning of the summer, we received an email from a staff member who said, what about incorporating these UVC systems into our building? How can we do that? Our building was built, base building in 1958. The STEM edition was 2017. We have 392,590 square feet to incorporate, to temperature control, to filter all of the air, everything that's associated with that. We have to be careful about how we incorporate equipment and how we go through processes. We have to be safe. We have to ensure that we're moving air, the cubic feet per minute air, fresh air intake, filterization, pressurization. How do we eliminate carbon dioxide inside of our building? And so those things are things that we're aware of. We can't go after a piece of technology that may be incredibly effective on this virus, but wouldn't be a good fit for our building. So we had to be sensitive to that. Over the course of this past summer, we had an independent company come in and look at our mechanical equipment, look at our processes. How are we maintaining our equipment? Do we need to do something else? Can we enhance this in some way? And so we followed their direction. The incorporation of this UVC system, we have purchased 3 of these. We've encouraged, Andy and I met with our custodial vendor, and we said, we need you to partner with us with this technology. Kevin Myers asked me to look into this and research this in September and October. We did a tremendous amount of research. We reached out to people that have been using it. And it's a company out of California that had been serving the healthcare community. And so they, in March, while the medical community was working on a vaccination, this group of engineers in California said, we have to somehow get the UVC systems that we're using in the healthcare industry and make those accommodated for schools. And they did that. And so we did the research. We found this company, R0. We purchased these units. We've got these units. They've been deployed in the building. So we're going to have 3 that the district has purchased. We've encouraged and successfully our custodial vendor purchased 2 more to put in our building, which those are in process too. Our custodians are being trained on how to use these. It's very particular. There's UVC light is 100% or 99.99 effective on viruses. There's a use for these systems afterwards. It's flu seasons, MRSA inside locker rooms, inside of our nurses' offices. All of those things inside of our cafeteria. So there's a long-term use for this technology. There's a long-term use for electrostatic spraying on lockers. We saw how fast we can go through a room. As Mike said earlier, if we have a health concern inside of a room, what we'd have to do is take the students out of that room, relocate them. In the summer, the directive was leave that room sit dormant for 24 hours. Bring in as much fresh air as you possibly can over the 24-hour period. At the end of 24 hours, you go in, you disinfect the room, you leave it sit. So theoretically, a room could be out of service for 2 to 3 days, depending on the case. This equipment and the disinfectant, the electrostatic units, it's 11 minutes, and that's 100%. You put it in a room, you disinfect the room with the electrostatic unit, you put this on, 7 minutes later, you take it out. There's no residual effect of that. It's removed from the room. Students can return to the room within 11 minutes. That's the turnaround time. And it's effective. So it's not just something that we're trying to expedite something or cut a corner. We're using technology, we're using science to our advantage. And so successfully. And so we're going through the building with these units. We're moving them into classrooms. We're moving them into the public, any common areas, office areas, bathrooms. Through the course of a day, we're going to go around with the electrostatic units. We're going to put these in the nurse's office in classroom. We can use these during the day safely. We're developing the protocols. We've brought on additional custodians for the daytime. We're no longer needing to monitor the cafeteria, a normal job for the custodians. We're roaming the halls. We're touch spots. We're developing that. So as staff and students come back in the building, it's going to be a safe environment. As much as we know about how this works, as much as we know about what we're combating, we have a little better idea about that right now. And so as this evolves, this company, they got these to market, but they're still working on it. I've taken part in several calls with their product development people in California. What can we do to perfect these systems inside of schools? How can we make it better? What can we do? And so these are things that this is the unit. We're very excited about this. We've incorporated it. We've incorporated it into our cleaning process. We're training our custodians with it so it's used efficiently and effectively. Next slide, please. So see, these are some of the mitigations that we've been working on. Some of them that you've seen before, some of them have been in place. Others that we've addressed things as the Illinois Department of Public Health, the Illinois State Board of Education, they amend what their recommendations are, their guidelines are. We've adapted to those. We've all communicated. What changes when groups come in, when the theater comes in, when athletics comes in. We ask everybody, seek out the guidance from your particular, whoever your governing body is. They seek that out, they bring it back into the table. How does that impact other groups? And so those are some of the processes that we're developing as we go along also. So defined entry points with hand-free infrared temperature scanning stations. You've all walked inside the building yesterday. The very beginning of this, we were shooting temperatures with handheld thermometers. Now we have these stations. It's a more effective temperature reading. We realize that people in the colder weather need to be inside of the building to become acclimated to the building temperature so that the temperatures aren't reading low. In the summertime when it was 95 degrees, Troy, they set up a tent out there. They allowed their athletes to stand inside of that for a while, cool down. The temperatures were lower. So we're learning more about that. These stations and the way we process people, defined entry points, 2 points into the building. We run people, not run, you guide people through a series of checkpoints into the building. So it's a fast, orderly, and effective process. The secondary nurses space, we realized at the very beginning of this, what we needed to do is have a secondary triage for someone who identified as symptomatic of COVID. Where do we bring them? What do? We can't keep them with the population of students. We need to isolate them somehow. How can we do that? So right next to our existing nurse's office, we built out, using CARE Act money, we built out a secondary nurse's office, completely isolated. We brought in a mechanical, a ventilation engineer, said, listen, we can't have commingled air here. We need to exhaust, bring fresh air inside of it and exhaust any air that was inside of that room directly to the outside. A completely inefficient mechanical design, but perfectly designed for what we need to do. We can't have that spread through an interstitial space inside of our building. It has to be exhausted out. So we did that. The nurses, that unit, that room is in isolation. Someone identifies as with a health concern. They bring them in there. The nurses do the evaluation on them. Incorporated with this, we've given our nurses each their own separate office. So it provides them a lot of things that we've been talking about for a number of years. So that's been a great positive for us. The nursing staff, they've worked with us. They've told us what they need, what their procedures are, what the processes are that they're looking for. So it's been shaped around what they're doing. We didn't tuck them into a room and say, here's what you have to deal with. We tried to build something around what they were going to do during the course of a day. Portable HEPA filtration units in classrooms. We have those. What we're doing is we're trying to determine sound level. So it's not a distraction to the classrooms. As Stacy mentioned, somebody's on a computer. We don't want to add any noise. We know. I'm going to jump to the next slide. We know that our rooms already meet the ASHRAE standards for air movement, for air turnover inside of a room. A classroom's between 4 and 6 turnovers per hour. We know that proper filtration, fresh air in, fresh air, we can bring a little more in, we're going to exhaust more. We're going to increase the number of air turnover. But we know that all of our rooms do that. But there's some rooms that don't have operating windows in them. So what we're going to do is we're going to add these HEPA filtration units. It's a portable HEPA filter. It handles the volume of cubic feet per minute volume inside of a room. So it's supporting, it's working in concert with the normal turnover inside of a room. The rooms currently meet ASHRAE standards, but this is something that we wanted to do additionally to those rooms that do not have operating windows. PPP or PPE inventories. We talked about this before. Everyone back in March, we were panicked. We couldn't get N95 masks. We couldn't get fit tested. We didn't have the proper gowns. We couldn't get the right gloves. Hand sanitizer was in a shortage. Right away, we reached out. We found and established a link to a company called Fortis Health out of Texas. It's supplying the medical field We were one of the first educational groups that joined with them. So once you have an established account, then you're able to, as they get their inventories replenished, as the supply chain strengthened, we were able to connect with that. So we established a level of PPE, and our subcommittee worked on this, that between all of the parties in the school. How many masks do you need? How many gowns do you need? What type of mask? Clear masks, so people can see the faces of certain teachers need those. We have all that, and in abundance. We also have a connection with inside of Fortis, our own personal account manager, where he knows our inventory. I can send him an email, and within a couple of days, that stuff's on its way. So currently, we have an excess number of that. Our nurses have been fit tested for their N95 masks. We have a stockpile of N95 masks. We have a link to get more should we need them. We have hand sanitizer stations throughout the building, hands-free. We have a stockpile of that also. So that's something that we've been working on, and that we've all been successful. The supply chain side of it's been successful of getting back up and meeting the demand. Disinfecting kits inside of the rooms and offices. Again, I'll go back to the example with athletics. You go outside Troy's office, there's always 12 of those kits sitting on the floor. All of his coaches come in, they grab them. Our driver's ed people, they had them in their cars. Every classroom, every office in our building has those. They'll be replenished on a nightly basis. Those bottles, the chemical that we use, this disinfectant, that's generated inside of our building. And the company that we're working with, the GSF, they're forever researching chemicals that we can use safely inside of schools. And again, because of the presence in the healthcare field in Europe and in the United States, they have access to those resources. Hands-free hand sanitizer, we talked about that. Removal of excess furniture in the side of classrooms. The excess furniture, excess desks, that's gone. So we're not stepping over desks. We're not saying that we can meet the 6-foot rule. We're meeting the 6-foot rule. We're not tripping over desks. We're not having to shift things away each class period. We've identified those 6 feet. We put the desks in where they need to be. The custodians have a piece of pipe. It's 6 foot 1 inches. We looked at that last night. They'll make sure that those desks are back in place when the rooms are clean. So we're doing that every night.
So Kevin, you did such a great tour. I'm just gonna have you guys look. Does anybody have any questions on any individual items here? Because your tour was so fantastic.
Please.
We covered a lot of this. Is there anything that you guys want to hear additional things about? Or
I just wanted to ask, there was some staff concern about shared workspaces. So like in district or department offices, when you got it, what have you done? We didn't get to see that on the tour yesterday. What have you done in those places?
We've had several conversations about that. Anthony and I met several times to discuss that. A lot of it goes back to the communication between working adults inside of a space. How are we going to do this? When is your lunch going to be? We talked about having established lunch spots with plexiglass shields around them so you could take your mask off and eat. Talked about other spaces in the building that wouldn't be utilized during a lunch period that you could go into.
So any staff who has a specific concern could communicate with you or with
100%.
Anthony, and it would be figured out.
Any staff member who's had a request for a shield on their desks, that they've been fulfilled. They have 100%. Not only should they, we encourage that conversation, and it has to encourage interdepartmentally also.
okay, yeah, I mean, I think we're pretty good on this because you gave such a
Okay.
nice tour the other night. So yeah.
That's all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
Kevin, I just have one. It's really not a question, but, well, it is, but, so 11 minutes per room times how many rooms? What, every night you're gonna expect it, what, from 5 to 9, 10 o'clock at night? What's it like?
Well, the custodians get to the school at 4 o'clock. They work until 11 o'clock midnight. We're gonna extend hours as we need, as we start to move. So we have 5 of those units. We can purchase more of the units. We want to see how they move through. And they do move, as you saw last night. It's as simple of a process as that. Put it in the room, go in, and you miss the other room.
Right.
You keep moving down. In the meantime, you're still working on other things while that 7 minutes is ticking away.
Sure, okay.
Well, being on the committee was a great learning experience. Like you said, we've learned so much in the past 9 months. So thank you for getting all these protocols in place, and it's looking really, like, I feel very comfortable and safe going into the building, and I hope everyone else who sees this sees that the effort and thought and care that went into putting all these processes in place. So thank
And
you.
thank you for participating in those subcommittees. That meant a lot to us and it helps all of us understand better.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right. Anyone else coming up?
Nope, that's it.
All right, there you are, Kevin.
There I am. So board members, that's the presentation based off the feedback you've had and the work we've been doing since August. I think you can see that we're about as well planned as we can be for the start of having students come back into the school. What we do know, we still will be learning just as we have from the beginning, and we'll continue to make adjustments through the process, no matter what it is, whether it's mitigations with students or adults or visitors entering the building to the educational process and how we're delivering that. But what we are committed to is making that the best process that we can and making sure we can offer what we need to academically, social, emotionally, and from a safety sense for our students and our staff. And I'll reiterate it again, that I know that people are nervous, scared. All of us are to some extent, or not maybe. But what I do know is this is a time for us to be able to begin. And should we be required or need to take an adaptive pause, we'll do that. What I do need, again, to reiterate is for everybody listening and to please communicate with your neighbors. This is going to take a total commitment by everyone in our community, for our parents and for our young adults. If you do not feel well, stay home. Help your friends, your neighbors, for all of us to be able to stay in school. So adults, we need you to be vigilant. Talk with your children before they go to school and make sure that they do not have any symptoms. And if we can do that, I have complete confidence that we'll be able to have our students and our staff in our building for quite some time. So tonight we are recommending that you do approve this plan, that we do have our students return to the hybrid model starting on the 25th of January.
All right, thank you, Kevin, and thank you all here for putting all this presentation together so quickly. I know there was a lot of information we asked for, but I think we can all feel very confident as a board that our staff and our students are coming back into a building that's safe and moving forward, educating our students.
I have a question.
Yes.
First of all, I'd like to say, wow, this meeting is exactly what we asked for. Every question we had, you guys addressed with clarity and thoughtfulness and confidence, so thank you. So this is a question not about the hybrid model so much as big picture COVID impact. We have been spending a lot of time addressing how do we respond, how do we improve, how do we deliver. I'm just going to put a request out there that at some point at a future meeting, we can hear about what's the impact of the pandemic and all the changes we've made in terms of the flow of students into the high school. What do we know or need to adapt to or need to do differently given what's happening at the feeder schools? And what's happening in terms of placement for colleges and trade schools and, kind of big picture, what adaptations are we having to make or need to start to address for that big picture flow? For a future meeting.
So Lisa, if I can, just to repeat what I'm hoping I heard you ask for. What is our process for basically placement for the incoming 9th grade class? How we would address that? If there's differences between with the amount of curriculum that they've received this past year compared to previous years?
I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. So I guess I'm asking, is everything the same as it's always been, or more likely, what impacts are there from the pandemic that are going to impact us because of what's happening with the feeder schools?
Okay.
And at the other end.
For both. Okay. we will try to get something together at a future meeting, probably like when Stacy referenced coming back, like with an update on how our current processes went. At that time, we'll have had some opportunities to meet with our students in grade placement, so we could hopefully do that then, maybe around March.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else? Peter?
I had 12 questions going into this. Every single one of them has been answered with depth and breadth that should make us all feel much more comfortable than we were just even a week ago. So thank you all for your efforts. We know you're invested in the kids. We know you're caring for each other. We appreciate that. And we know it's going to be a challenge, right? We know the grass isn't necessarily greener on the other side, so it'll present its other challenges too. I just want to say, for all those out there who are listening, who are parents, we've heard you. For the staff, we thank you. For the administration, we appreciate what you've done. For the teachers, we need your talents more now than ever. And for the students, we're ready for you. We're ready for you to come back. We're looking forward to it.
I just want to acknowledge, while we have people out there listening and everyone in the room, I mean, the organization, the preparation, the passion that went into tonight's presentation. I mean, Peter, you hit it on the head. Kevin, we gave you a laundry list of things to come up with just a week ago, and you guys more than sufficiently covered everything. I would hope anyone out there that's listening tonight, no matter where your head is at with this, whether you're planning to send your kids remote, hybrid, if you're a staff member that can't wait to come back or you're nervous, you have to be impressed with what you saw tonight. Everything we asked for last week was thoroughly covered and addressed. We asked to see the building, we put it together. We got a fantastic tour of the building yesterday. The security people in the building were overwhelmingly enthusiastic, and you could tell that they're ready to have the students back in the building. And everything that was done tonight was just outstanding. And what I would also say, Kevin, you mentioned this some, now it's time for the community to step up. There's been fighting going on amongst the community for months now. Should the kids go back? They shouldn't go back. Fighting amongst staff at different schools everywhere. This is the time, whether your kids are staying remote or you're hybrid, we're all on the same team now, and we have to root for this to be successful, and we all have to do our part to make it successful. Teachers, I can relate, believe me. I went back to school yesterday. I know it's going to be challenging. I think what the administration has done to give you 2 days to help prepare for this, I know it's only 2 days, but it's 2 more days than teachers are getting in a lot of other places. And community members, parents, you've got to understand, we've got to support the teachers as they try to come back and make this work. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be extremely difficult. So anything you can do as a parent to help is going to be appreciated by the teachers. And as the adults, we need to set the example for all of the kids. Wherever your head is at personally on this, you need to get behind this publicly so the kids feel supported. And as a board, we need to get behind you publicly so the administration and the teachers feel supported. And I don't think there's any reason that we shouldn't feel like we're ready to go after what we just saw.
All right, well, thank you again for everyone's efforts. I'm feeling very confident in what you guys have put together and the plan that we have, and ready, set, let's go. Okay, so the next thing that I have is we need to vote on a board action item of the second semester reopening.
We have to do that.
No,
No, did I jump?
jump the gun.
I got too excited.
Isn't it press policy?
Yeah, we've got a press policy.
I don't have it on my agenda.
It's on the
Yeah,
district
it was,
120
yeah.
report.
Yeah.
It's on our.
What she's reading off of?
It wouldn't be listed on our calendar. Here, if you want, you can give it a call.
Okay, hang on, it's coming.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Remember, part of what we said, we've got to be flexible.
Here we go. It's not on my paper. I don't, it's like it's not in my calendar. It's not there. So, okay, the next one,
Yeah,
press policy 106, first reading.
I got it.
Got it?
Yeah, so board members, this is the first reading for Press Policy 106. This is not a very lengthy list of policy numbers to go through. There are 11 of them. Of the 11, there's actually only 2 that I would say you do need to take some time, please, before the next meeting and read through, because there are some changes in there. While not significant, there is enough that you need to be aware of. And that would be the student activity funds. There's verbiage in that one for you to be able to go through. And then the second one would be the course substitutions in regards to the apprenticeship programs that are being proposed to be added into board language for the policy. The other 9 policies, they have changes that are just due to different regulations that have been put in place that do not have any substantive changes with the language that we currently have. So as you look,
Kevin, I think you're muted. Or you went away for a second. We missed, we can't hear you.
all right,
There
am
you
I
are.
back?
We're back.
All right, where'd I stop at?
Rest of the
The
regulations.
rest of the regulations, the other 9.
Okay, the rest of the other regulations are not as, don't have substantial changes. They're all just really legal references that have been updated. So you can certainly go through those, but if time's not available for you, it's the student activity funds one policy that you want to go through, and the course substitutions policy, which deals with the apprenticeship program. So the activity fund one is 490. The course substitution one is 6310. Those are the 2. Other than that, I don't have anything else to report tonight.
Great, thank you. Can I get back to the board action items now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so, just make sure. So we're pretty much all ready to vote. So our board action item tonight is the second semester reopening plan. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education of Mundelein High School District 120 accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the second semester reopening plan as presented.
So moved.
Melling,
Yes.
Davalos,
Yes.
Wimet,
Yes.
Australi,
Yes.
Wellington,
Yes.
Yaffe, yes, vote.
Yes. All right, the next item on our agenda is executive session for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. Litigation, when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the finding shall be recorded and entered into the minutes of the closed meeting. Discussion of minutes of meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act, whether proposed of approval by the body of the minutes or the semi-annual review of the minutes as mandated by section 2.06. Action may be taken as a result of executive session. Okay, so I need to adjourn regular session and go into executive session. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Wellington,
Yes.
Australi,
Yes.
Yaffe, yes, vote.
Yes.
Davalos,
Yes.
Mellon,
Yes.
Wimet.
Yes.
8:55.
right, you guys enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Very great
Yeah.
presentation.
What a team.
He's on,
Peter pleasure, yeah.
do you see he's on the Fremont board right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on Fremont.
I was gonna ask you if you knew him. Current. He's the current vice president there.
Right.
My youngest is, is his oldest an 8th grader? You
I
know?
don't know that. I don't know.
I've spoken to him on the phone.
Okay, working again now again.
Okay, may I have a roll call to go back into open session?
Oh, wait, sorry,
You need a motion?
it's called, I don't think I need a motion, it's just called the order.
Just to call over.
Yeah, Davalos,
Here.
Mellon,
Yes.
Wimet,
Here.
Esterly.
Here.
Wellington,
Here,
Yapi, yes, here, vote,
Yes.
9:46.
Okay, so, the first thing we have is our executive session minutes. Have a paper on those. All right, did anybody have any questions on the executive session minutes? Okay, so, we're gonna take an action on that. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education of Mundelein High School District 20 accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the executive session minutes for December 8th, 2020. May I have a motion?
Second.
Who was? Mellon,
Yes.
Esterly,
Yes.
Wellington, Yapi, yes, vote,
Yes.
Davalos, Wimet.
Yes.
Okay, and then we are getting, so we're getting to the end here. There's President's prerogative. I'm gonna just thank you guys all. We've taken on a very difficult job of making a decision that will affect a lot of people, and be prepared that some people will probably be very thankful and other people will not be very thankful. So thank you for doing the work and the research and taking the tours and spreading the information. I mean, I think it's really important that we spread information in our community so that people know what we're doing and why we're doing it, and that it makes sense. Like I had a discussion with someone about, the mitigations that we're taking. But yeah, we're not just coming back the way we were. We've done a lot of hard work and homework to make this happen and to make it safe for our students. And, they still have a choice right now. And so we're trying to meet everyone's need. And I know we can't tell any family what's right for your family. I can't tell anyone because they have to deal with their family and what's right for them personally based on financial, physical health needs that they have. So thank you guys for putting in all the effort, because I know this is probably way more time than anyone anticipated. I guess moving forward, we'll just keep trying to keep a close, a finger on the pulse of what's going on. Ask your kids how it's going, see how, if you hear things within the community or from staff, let's try and keep it so that, like you said, this is only going to work if everyone feels supported and we work together. So.
The metrics committee will be bringing additional, they had a very good meeting today. It was a hard meeting, but the intention is to continue to bring in data, and with that data, new data as well as old data, to continue to inform the community and the community decision makers.
Well, and Peter shared some information with me. There has not been this ginormous surge that they were expecting after Christmas.
no.
Not here.
We're trending, we're holding steady, and, our zip code, I mean, you can say it.
Our zip code numbers this week are the best out of the 60060 zip code is the best set of numbers this week.
So it's nice to see.
The
We
county
have
numbers.
once again gone below county numbers on some of the metrics, and we are seeing core community of Mundelein having made some significant strides. For what the metric is worth, it's a nice sign to see.
And I heard yesterday the Lake County Health Department's anticipating that in the coming days and next couple of weeks that the positivity is going to continue to trend down in Lake County.
And the vaccine is hopefully, I've heard teachers, next, hopefully, a more organized rollout of that vaccine. So that people, because if Joe Biden gets in office, he said he's not gonna hold it back. He's gonna get it out and get as many vaccines as possible. Hopefully that will be looking forward to. Kevin, your team did a great job tonight. It's wonderful answers for all our questions. So thanks for getting everyone to pull that together quickly. I hope you're doing okay where you are, and I hope everything's going well there. But thank you for attending tonight. I know you're in a spot right now. So anything you want to?
Thank you. And I'd want to share, certainly want to share with the board, thank you for having that special meeting. I think after the experience that we've had over the past year, having that clear voice from you of what you are looking for from us certainly added some confidence in us with what we could go through and pull together. And I think that you're able to see that tonight. So definitely appreciate your support and what you're also seeing that we need to do to support our community. So thank you very much. Very proud of how the team performed tonight with providing the information, and it takes everybody. I mean, this was a team effort. I mean, even with working with our staff and knowing that not everybody's in agreement with this, everybody's still continuing to willing to engage and to see what we can do to keep making it better. And to me, I think that is the ultimate thing we can do. I think Aaron mentioned it earlier. You look around other communities that are going through this, it's been a real struggle. And while this has been hard for everybody, I think we've maintained our professionalism with keeping everybody informed and have handled it about as best as anybody can handle it. And I think Tom's echoed that a number of times. And Laura, I know you've been talking to the board. This has just been a good example of how to work together. So thank you.
And thank you for being responsive to the staff concerns. I think that right now is the biggest hurdle. Since the parents and students are having options, the staff will respond to us being as you guys have been. So that's great. Thank you.
You not only we asked for last week, but if you think about that letter that was read, a lot of the bullet points I call brought up in that letter, I think have now been addressed.
I love that Jamie said that there'll be quick testing available for anyone, for staff that feels concerned, because I think that's a big level of comfort knowing if you're concerned, you can have those results quick, and that's just a wonderful thing that to have that alliance with that group.
Yep, agreed.
Okay, on that note, let's let everybody get home because it's almost 10 o'clock. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right.
Best wishes to you and your family.
Thank you.
Oh, I need a motion to adjourn the meeting. Sorry.
So moved.
Seconded.
Wellington,
Yes.
Vogt,
Yes.
Davalos.
Yes.
Mellon,
Yes.
Winet.
Yes.
Australi,
Yes.
Yaffe, yes. 9:54. Thank you.
9:50.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I actually hate it. Well, it doesn't look practical, but it looks really cool.
I have one of those too. I have a silver one.
I think it looks great, but
Travel
it's
with
just
the
the
color?
armholes. just
No,
don't
I bought that tonight. I was just-
It were over a coat,
store,
you know?
And they had these
I
in
think we have a
there,
bunch
and
of
I thought
signing-
themselves,
I have
those
signed
are
on
the-
them.
Oh, she sells them. I don't know. I thought Peter, during my Zoom meetings, or at least